Police Services Board meeting to order, please. Can I get a motion for confirmation of the agenda for tonight? Rick moves that, and Jim seconds it. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? None noted. We have the minutes to the Police Services Board meeting held September the 17th. That was actually only a couple of weeks ago, so it should be relatively fresh in everybody's mind, I'm guessing. Is there a board member that would wish to move those minutes? Jim will move them, Kathy will second it. Is there any questions or comments to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Delegation, none. Business arising, there's nothing that I am aware of in the business, the minutes that are business arising. There's some follow-up information that we as the staff and board are to do with regards to those, the grant with regards to the money that came for the legalization of cannabis, so we are going to be working with that in order to get some information back for that. So number 7 is the detachment commander report. So I will, Inspector Rob?
Yep.
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, it should be pretty brief, I think,
Yep.
from the last time. So, does everybody have the copy? I don't necessarily need to read it all, but certainly with our violent crimes, year-to-date in September, assault is certainly the one that's there with 10. Property crimes, of course, theft under, that's certainly year-to-date, we're sitting at 31. And frauds 12, mischiefs 15. Certainly to date, there's a total of 71 related property crimes in those categories. Drug crimes, we're sitting at 3. I'll make comment on a more significant media release concerning drugs there that will have more impact. Again, our clearance rates, you can review those, but overall, based on the data that we have, and we know we're building that data at every meeting that we have, we're down 22% from last year, but I'm not quite sure how they're drawing that inference out. So, again, criminal records checks, vulnerable record checks, they're at 3 in 2019, and vulnerable record checks are 18 in 2019 as well. Any questions concerning those? I know they're kind of difficult stats considering we don't have a database to draw on. As far as the traffic statistics and related issues, our traffic hazards, we're at 2 for September. Traffic enforcement at 1. Traffic complaint. Now that won't include our provincial offenses notices issued, because until we actually get on the e-ticket program, it's tough for us to really divide them amongst municipalities. That's unfortunately something that we're not able to. Once we get e-ticketing, which will be sometime in the future, we've been asking when, then we should be able to do that a little more readily. As far as reportable motor vehicle collisions, there was 4 in September. Non-motor vehicle reports were 2, and total there was no impaireds or dangerous operations or fail to remains. Now, given the quick turnaround, the data may not all be loaded, so I will say that it's usually around the 15th of the month that things tend to get somewhat rectified in the system. More notable is certainly in September 10th. Did we talk about this one in the last meeting, the stabbing?
Yes.
Yeah, so there was the stabbing where our officers were there. That was reported on the last time. Again, our Lock It Lose It campaign, that again, we may have touched on that, but we still find that despite our efforts with our community safety officer and auxiliary members doing lock it, checking vehicles for being locked, there still remains a considerable amount left unlocked and, with, as we noted the last meeting, keys left in the ignition in some instances. And certainly that contributes to, the continued, minor thefts that occur within the community. This one, I don't believe, I think we did comment on this one, the large methamphetamine seizure in North Perth, and that, by a combined street crimes unit, that certainly had a huge impact on the municipality here as a whole, and was linked back to the greater Toronto area as well. One of the things though that we do put out that it's kind of dear to my heart, and I think it's important for the communities to know the awards that our officers and the citizens that we make put nominations for to be recognized by our commissioner, and every year we have an annual OPP awards ceremony. I won't read it all obviously there, but if you may recognize some of the members in there that have received bravery awards, life-saving awards, good service conduct medals, and as well as several firefighters, EMS workers, and citizens that have also been recognized for their efforts in providing assistance to the community. This no way is certainly, it's not, there's obviously people that are missed that do great things to assist the police, to assist their communities, and unfortunately we just can't capture them all, but we try and do our best to make that recognition, because I think it's good for the community to know. The other one I think of more note since our last meeting is that our combined drug unit executed a drug warrant right here in Wingham, and although certainly there wasn't a large amount of controlled substances seized, there was a quantity of methamphetamine and opioids, oxycodone, and some prohibited weapons, small knives, but certainly you can see that there were several people arrested in relation to that, and that I'm sure will have some good positive community impact, knowing that I'm sure the people in the area that live there, I'm sure it was noted in most coffee shops in and around the area that there was a warrant executed. So we certainly don't look at quantity is always nice, but sometimes just the mere fact that there's warrants executed, that just may be the point where perhaps those individuals are minor players in the drug system. However, often it's been my experience that those same players may be involved in the fencing of stolen property, maybe behind that small lower level criminal element of any community that we have, and that sometimes carries more weight, at least for a moment, to interrupt the cycle of minor thefts and property related crimes and other things in the community. So I think that was a good one, and great work by our officers. And quite often that information is gleaned through members of the community calling us. So that's why it's really important for members of the community to call and speak to our officers, and they move forward from there. As follows our billable calls for service at month's end. Again, the timing of the report may not be as accurate as we could be, just given the data upload, but they're, according when this was ran on the 28th of September, there were 2,306 billable calls for service in the town of Wingham. And when you look at the last page as far as the contracted hours, September sits at 525 hours. I will run these again because it was done at month end, there could be overlap, and depending on when officers actually get their DAR entry, their reporting entry, that's going to impact their obligated duty hours where this data comes from. So given the fact that there were search warrants executed and probably a lot of activity, I suspect they should be higher than 525. So, and the other thing I'm going to do when I look at that is I'll have Dave go back from the start and run just to see where we're at in the numbers, because what I suspect from this is that these numbers were ran, say, in June, and they showed the subtraction, but I suspect that that's for that moment of time, and if I run them all again, there may be some change as well. So I'll check on that as well. and provide an update. And unless there's any questions, that's the report. Give it a quick turnaround.
Is there any questions for Inspector Scott? Okay,
And just on that note, I was very pleased, if I could just more of a comment, I think it was just announced, Williams and their mental health, nurse, is it the nurse practitioner or the nurse, what is it, the clinician that is funded for mental health, through the hospital?
okay,
Family health team?
Yeah, I think so. So that's a great addition to, I think, our work towards mental health calls in those people. So
yeah,
I know Joanna Van Merlo, who's our mental health mobilization officer. I think she attended a meeting in relation to that. So that's some great positive stuff, and I think that's something that we're certainly excited to work with. And we're hoping, I believe I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, our mobile crisis work with it it'll be shared between Perth and Stratford, but that's a growing thing, so I think it's all steps in some great directions on that, so. That's it.
okay, there's no questions, I would take, motion by the board to approve the detachment manager's report from October 8th as presented. Rick moves it. Jim seconds. All those in favor? Carried. Our finance report, you'll see there's not a whole lot going on there. The only thing that I would note of that bills and accounts is those bills from the Owen Sound Police Service are the final bills for the communication for the dispatching for the Wayne Police Service. So as you will see that communication system, we have some items that are over budget, or we have some items that are under budget, which is kind of nice to have. Hopefully it all evens out in the end. So if I would take a motion by the board to authorize and approve the payments of bills and accounts of $11,117.65 for the period of September 22nd to October the 4th.
If I might, Trevor, I think
Yes.
those numbers are reversed. I think that the police should be 11,000 and the station is 0.
Yes,
Yeah, you might be right, Mandy entered those, but
we don't make a motion based on the board, of the
Yeah.
actual split, we just make the motion on the actual total number,
yeah,
so
that's just for your
that's just more for
the
us.
account.
I'll move it.
Okay, Kathy moves that and Rick seconds it. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move up to bylaws, and there is a question, once I'll read this is the authorization of the community, safety and policing grant. So, Inspector Scott, you as well as Dave have received some emails from, the ministry as well as we have regarding the approval of this grant. We understand, based on the looks of it, from a staff perspective, that there's a significant amount of reporting that is
Right.
required to head back to the ministry for this grant. The clarification from the board as well as the staff is, does the OPP have enough resources in order to complete those regulations for that grant? Because if we can't, then the argument is, should we be receiving this grant?
Let me look into that, because other communities that I oversee, I haven't, leave it with me, I'll look to that.
When
So we have to have 2 signed copies delivered to the ministry by October 18th.
October 18th. And the signed copies have to be between me and you, right?
You're the.
So you require reporting,
So what happens is there's a reporting that has to be established to the ministry annually as it relates to this grant.
this is the,
Community
Safety
Safety and
grant.
Policing Grant.
Right,
So this is not the RIDE, there's a RIDE grant, and then there's this community statement, which is, I think,
yeah, that's the one that's kind of replaced the 1,000 officer program, all that stuff that existed in the past.
yeah, we haven't, and the only other grant that I believe, this isn't the grant that the interim, detachment commander Wendy submitted.
This is the one.
So this is
Yeah.
this is that grant which related to more about, there's lots to deal with, lots to talk about mental health and issues in that. So it was a concern from our perspective that, we had one detachment commander with David Cinco kind of coordinating the application. Now it's submitted, now we've got David as well as the new detachment. We just want to make sure in clarity
Yeah.
that, we are okay to sign this this transfer
Right,
and not be concerned that we're gonna miss out in reporting and then find it, we're gonna have to send money back.
okay, so you could sign it, we just have to figure out what metrics we're gonna use to say that we've satisfied receiving the money.
So
Harrison?
there's a couple concerns that we had as staff. One is that if you look through the proposal that Wendy developed, so it's very comprehensive, right? So in there, she talks about developing a community safety unit, working, collaborating with a bunch of different community organizations. So there's that piece with the work that would be required there, but then there's the reporting piece, which is, there was those Excel sheets that came through, and so there was like 6 different ones, so one was like a certain thing for year 1, and then a second one for year 1, and then there was 2 for year 2, and there was 2 for year 3. So those things would have to be kind of looked at in advance so that we know that on your end, you guys can have that filled out.
Pull the metrics or whatever we.
Yeah,
pull.
could you send that to me, yes?
So it came on the email that,
Okay,
where it sent through, it was one of the attachments there. There was like 6 different attachments, and they were all the Excel ones.
okay, in fairness, I've been going 100 miles an hour to figure out who's
Yeah.
who. So, I haven't got to every email,
Yeah.
there's been a few there, so.
What we'll do is.
Because I'll have the same thing going on at Perth, because we did the same thing, and I'll talk to Sergeant Bentley, the counterpart in Perth County, because when I say we, Wendy and I had discussions, and we were structuring it very similarly through our discussions with our municipalities. So I'll see what Scott's perspective is on that reporting.
Based on this email that I just seen, it appears that the original email that came from the ministry went to Wendy and it went to Jason, but it didn't go to you or David.
Right.
So the question is that, we may wanna just follow up as to that. Looks like, but Dwayne forwarded it to at least he had forwarded
According to Dave.
the basically saying that we got the grant.
Yes.
The question is whether we've actually got the paperwork that says what we need to file or what we need to fill out.
Okay.
So I think from our perspective, the board, I think, wants just to make sure that we're confident that we can, take the ministry's money
Yeah,
and utilize it and not be concerned that, in year 2, we can't.
what did you do with it?
What we do with it, not be able to file the paperwork with the ministry, and the ministry says, well, now you gotta write us a check for $71,000.
Yeah.
That's the concern.
I think too, in fairness to the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I know when we were working through this, and I can speak for Perth, because I was there at the time, like, I'm there now, but that's the one we went through, my understanding is that, I think right now, they're pretty flexible on, like, some extensions and having discussion as to what the report back is, because it's new to everybody. So, I'll make some inquiries, because I'll be faced with the same thing in Perth County,
Mhm.
and I suspect Goderich and the other places that put into the same grants,
Yeah.
and we'll get that resolved.
Yep, okay,
Okay. Now, having said that, I'm away all next week. I will endeavor to try and get some answers by this week's end.
okay.
But I can almost rest assure you that every municipality thinking, especially Huron and Perth and other municipalities within these counties, are gonna be having the same questions.
Questions?
So there'll be an answer there. I think it's just a matter of that, and I'll talk to Sergeant Scott Bentley, who I assigned to spearhead it in Huron, and I'll give Wendy a call to see what her perspective is on the report back.
Okay,
Because they, I believe they were mirrored, however, probably written to the nuances of the municipality to which, you know, they
She
were,
would
that
have-
that it's affected, right? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I know when we were writing, when I say we, when we were assisting in writing these grants, there was a lot of, Wendy actually wrote yours, but we were actually municipalities in Perth, I think, no, that was the other one, that was the other one. But we'll just try, if we can pull some metrics from someplace to see how we move forward.
Okay.
I wouldn't be panicky about it, but we'll get to the bottom of it, because
Okay.
usually we can articulate it, and because we have so many programs going on all over the county, and in this municipality, all of them, so, we're quite confident we can, because we don't receive the money, you do,
we do, yeah.
and that's more of a question of, and again, this is all new to me, just as much as it is you, is what programs or what things can you, the municipality, because it's the municipality's money, can they do in turn? You know, are you looking at, you know, community programs, are you looking at outreach, will it fund something, or, you know, all these different things, so I'm sure you can find a quick way to spend that and get metrics back from it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure the fact that
Yeah,
if the information that was presented in the grant, that we would have some type of understanding, the board would get some kind of update
yeah,
throughout the year, and then we know by the end of the year, when year one comes, we know that we're gonna have something submission, and then as again.
yeah, you met the
to-
objectives of
We
first
met the
year.
objectives kind of thing, as opposed to, you know,
Mhm.
we don't wanna just, at, you know, at the end of year one or year two or whatever, say to yourself or David or whoever and say, any chance you've got those
Yeah.
information's filed?
No, no, I,
Because we wanna
I'm
make
with
sure
you.
that the board has had a chance to
Yeah.
review them and make sure that we're confident, especially if I'm signing it.
No, I will have those discussions.
Okay, so that was really the more of, go get Carson?
Yeah, so just for the board's information, the other distinction that I wanted to draw, because there was kind of some confusion last time around the RIDE grant and whether we had received that funding yet. But ultimately, the difference between this grant and the RIDE grant is, so the RIDE grant, we receive the funds after the final reporting. So North Huron's eligible for, I believe it's like around $6,000 to go towards RIDE grants. And ultimately, based on however many RIDE grant programs the OPP can conduct, then that reporting comes back and then we submit that, we get the maximum of up to $6,600
Yeah, so
something dollars.
It's different, it's ride comes after the hours are spent, where this is, we'll give you the money and then you gotta tell us how you spent it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. The RIDE ones are easy, we've been doing those for years, and it's just, sometimes you hit it at the bottom, sometimes, you don't hit your mark all, but we try and get as close as we can to.
Okay? So really this, number 8 really was to talk to authorizing, myself as chair, to sign the transfer payment agreement with the Ministry of Solicitor General for the Community Safety and Policing Grant. So, being a bylaw to authorize the chair to sign on behalf of North Huron Police Services Board that transfer payment agreement. Is there a member that would like to move that motion? Rick will move it. Kathy will second it. Is there any questions or further comments? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay,
So, Mike, sorry, I know this is your piece, but I'm assuming that you'll sign it, and it'll be done by the 18th, and we'll continue to work on the metrics piece.
That is correct. Well,
Okay.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure Carson sends that document
Yeah.
that we get from the ministry to you, as well as copying Dave.
Right.
And then make sure that we're gonna continue to put it on, 6 months from now or 8 months from now to kind of just jog our memory to say, how are we going with those reports, to make sure that we can all rest assured that we're all on the same page about how we're getting those metrics.
Yeah, so I'm not tied to the 18th,
No,
but, well, it's a priority, I just want to assure you that.
we're tied to the 18th because we have to sign the paperwork to get it back to the ministry to get the money.
And it's a priority for me here and elsewhere, and that's the first time it's been raised. And again, this is a brave new world for all of us on these grants, so we'll work through it. I don't suspect it'll be that problematic in the sense that every detachment, police agency will all be faced with the same thing. So I'll be able to reach out and we'll get some direction on that. And I'll talk to Wendy too, because everybody has their forte, and Wendy's very, very well versed in those things.
Okay.
100%. So I'll see what her thought process was when she did that. So.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on to correspondence. So just want to reiterate to the board, this is the 2020 OPP annual billing statement. So this went to the municipality and was sent to me, and I said, well, before it goes to council, it should come here. The fact that this board is still operating the Wingham Ward, so we should, so there is, so as you will see, based on the information that you read in here, there is about a $60,000 increase to our costs from 19 to 20. And what we've been instructed as to why that is salary adjustments for the officers as well as equipment purchases is what we've been instructed as the reason. I have asked that question back to the OPP is this a one-time cost or is this an annual increase? And if I can pull up the email that I read, I believe it's next year and the year after. So we would be in the last year of our contract when those raises would be done. And then there would be a new contract for the officers, I guess, at that point. It's all based on the agreement with the OPP officers, is what we got.
If I'm to understand this correctly, because municipal policing bureau and how that they transcend that is, we let them speak to that, to be quite honest. Like, that's, there's a lot of moving parts. What usually impacts the salary dollars is any collective agreements.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're getting at.
Yeah, so
So there'll be, I think in the last contract, there was like a cost of living increase. It wasn't substantial. And then they may transfer on some of those operational costs that would come from increases of, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, Carson, so the response we got back from Audrey Sage, which is from the Municipal Policing Bureau, she basically indicated that below was at this time, we are aware that the further increase relating to uniform and civilian salaries based on the 1922 OPPA arbitration package, which was effective July the 1st. So from 19 to 22, they had a arbitration package that they were successful in getting.
It was a
Contract
through salary agreements and stuff like that.
So those salary agreements would be a weighted average based on rank, class, and a whole bunch of other metrics as it relates to. So to say that those are increases, those are the increases for 19, 20, and 22. So it would be 60,000 next year. It wouldn't go up, well, unless it's gone up again. Each year, if there's a raise, it would go up to whatever their increase rate is.
Yeah, the contract, I think, is for 3 years, so.
Yeah.
that, however they disperse that amongst the 3 years
Right.
would be what it is.
And
And then it
then-
would open up after that,
Yeah,
depending on what the new contractor agreement with the government would put in the OPPA collective agreement.
yeah, and then the other option, or the other part of it was as Inspector Scott mentioned, is the flow through of operating costs, meaning capital. Cars, trucks, or SUVs, uniforms, guns, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I can comment on that, just because we live it, is that, there's a considerable amount of work and gone into looking at how do we extend mileage on vehicles to extend their life. You know, better maintenance as far as being on top of it a lot more to extend the life of a vehicle. They're exploring, although there's been some, things such as like all-season tires instead of having to flip them out. However, they're in this test phase for that, because obviously in every part of the province, it's not gonna work. But they're taking a lot of different strategies, and for example, when we looked at, and it's, you know, everybody in this room seen a police car, and especially in this area in the winter, it's been running, nobody's in it. Sometimes there's a reason for that, sometimes it's just a waste of gas. So we went through a huge campaign where officers like shut your car off, and there's no need to have it running unless there's a purpose for it. And they realized enough savings to buy tasers. That's how they did that. It's just looking at how we're doing business and driving efficiency. That's going on, I can tell you, in every aspect of our organization, so that when, you know, those operating costs, they're doing a lot. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, as in any business, right? So they're looking at a lot of that, so that when there's an increase in a certain area, they're looking at, you know, how many cars do we need? Like, there's a lot of things going on, right down to uniform issues, all these things, but still trying to maintain the standards that we expect of our officers and their equipment and their appearance and just how we do business, so. Another thing as well is that the technology, right? We're having to, like, all our cruisers now are equipped with, you know, onboard computers, you know, all this equipment. A lot of, as legislation changes, and what we have to carry, what we don't have to carry, all these things increase the cost of policing everywhere, right? So, I know I'm not telling you something that you probably don't already know, but, when you do look at those operating expenses, but the one thing is that, you know, if we were to, you know, and it happens just through the course of our business, you have damage to cars, people, you know, trying to get somebody off the road, all those things, is that, we have the ability to go and pull from a pool and get a replacement relatively quickly that's fully equipped. So, and then that's right back into the municipality, so. And the other thing too that we've looked at too is our pursuit policies, all these things, public safety driven, damage, officers speeding, all these things we're looking at and have been looked at to change the culture of how we do business, to make it safer, and that has impact on cost, associated costs too, so, yeah.
So I did want the board to be aware of this particular, before it went to the municipal council. The municipal council's gonna get it, because they're ultimately the funder of the money now. But I thought it was imperative that the board here understand what and I will pass on the email that I got from the ministry to the board as well. I just figured we'd have a communication here, but then just pass it on so you can digest it, as well, after tonight's meeting.
And all that's transferred into your cost per property, household cost, and then the additional piece is that your billable calls for service. So that's how it's recognized by the,
That's right.
by the community, by people that live in the municipality.
Yeah,
And in many cases, it's gone down in some areas, like by $1, but, you know, it fluctuates and depending on how the numbers work.
yeah,
So the contract, the 3-year contract is not a fixed contract?
it's not a fixed contract, no. It's based on salaries, adjustments, no different than we would have for the contract that the Dwayne Police Service had. Those were not fixed contracts, those were based on, negotiated contract that they had with the officers, so it's the same, it's, the contract is based on a full-time equivalent individual. Well, the full-time equivalent individual rank, class, salary could be different based on the agreement, so, and with every change in salary comes a change in benefits, which comes in a change of other things, that shift premiums and a whole bunch of other things that are arbitrary or negotiated and collectively done through the ministries and that type of stuff, so, you know, in living this for the past 4 years and living contracting, I'm not, am I surprised at all that this has gone up $60,000? Absolutely not. I would suggest that, you know, I've said to many people before, and I'll say it again, and open, I think we were going to find our increases to be more than $60,000 if we would have had the Wayne Police Service. And I've said that. I've been openly vocal about that, just based on how our resources and our time has been, with regards to very difficult negotiations, very difficult understanding what level of service we have, making sure that we have the number of safety of our officers, a whole bunch of options and qualitative and quantitative. I've said it before and again. I truly believe that we were running a relatively risky service for quite a number of years, based on the resources that we had. So is there any questions, or any other questions with regards to that correspondence? I just thought it would be, I thought to the fact that it came and we were having this meeting, I thought it was imperative that the board have it. Obviously it's 2020, and just so the board is aware, everything is reconciled at the end of the year. So they tell you this number now, but at the end of the year, it could not be $60,000, it could be less than that. Prime example is the agreement we just had for the year of 2019. We started February, March, and April with 3 less officers. So we had a $60,000 surplus on what our reduction was gonna be. Now we're gonna probably make that up with all this other stuff, but I think that's the type of stuff that we have to be, we're gonna continue to watch that type of stuff with the budgets, and that with staff is gonna help us to make sure we're aware of it, so that we can make sure that we're following on target and understand where our costs are going. Okay? So there's no, so any new business, so I would,
I make a motion for the
Oh.
correspondence to be ordered.
oh yes, yeah, I apologize, I was just getting there. Motion to have the correspondence order read and filed. Rick moves it. Have a seconder? Jim seconds. All those in favor? Carried. So we've got nothing else in, other than a closed session, so I will take a motion by the board to go into closed session. Kathy moves that, and Rick seconds. All those in favor? Carried. That will leave you, the closed session is in regards to, Wayne Police Service stuff, so you. So just to report, the reporting out, so North Huron Police Service Board discussed and closed pursuant to section 35 of the Police Services Act, intimate financial matters or personal matters may be disclosed of such nature having regard to the circumstances that desirable of avoiding their disclosure in the interest of any person affected in the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceeds to opening to the public. The discussion of pension top-up for officers of the Wayne Police Service. I would take a motion to, for recommendation as discussed in closed. Rick moves that. Do I have a seconder? Jim seconds. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so our next meeting, the next meeting of the North Central Police Service Board is gonna be held on November the 19th here. The next Zone 5 meeting is held in December the 10th in Orangeville. Do we know, board members, if you could let myself or Carson know if you're available to attend that meeting? It's usually a 9 till noon, meeting, in Orangeville. You're usually back in town by 2 o'clock, usually.
What was that, Dave?
December the 10th. Okay, if anybody could, let me know. Day meetings are hard for me to get out. I've got enough during council that I can't seem to get out to all everything, so my employer tends to get upset at me. So, if there is no further business to the North Huron Police Services Board, the meeting hereby adjourned at 8:22. Move it, Rex moves it, Jim seconds. All in favor? Carried. We are done.